I'm here with Alec of Wings the Night to talk about their latest record, Just the Basics, out right now everywhere you can pick it up, all the streaming platforms. It's available for you, so go check it out. But before you go check it out, listen to what we have to say. Listen to our chat about the record and about how everything came together. So first of all, thank you very much for taking the time to join me today for this chat.
Yeah, of course, Pedro. It's a pleasure. I'm glad you guys had us on.
Ah, no, no, my pleasure, man, my pleasure. So let's go back a little bit. For those that don't know anything or they don't know much about the band, things for you guys got started before the pandemic, but then the pandemic, obviously had an impact on the band as it did on everybody. So how much of the band today is what it is because of the way you guys managed the pandemic?
Um, it's interesting. We've always kind of been we've been like so we all met in college. Myself, Zach, and Luca, who are I'm the drummer. Luca's the vocalist, Zach's the guitarist. Zach is like the primary songwriter. We all kind of met in college, and we like got really close over those 4 years. But Luca's from Croatia. I'm from New York, and Zach is from North Carolina, but he lives in DC now. So we've always kind of been like a band that was separated. Um, but yeah, we we spent a lot of time and worked super hard on a record that like we recorded months before the world shut down. And I think a lot of bands, we're not the only band that went through this, clearly, like, but a lot of bands like had a lot of plans interrupted on like how to get music out or like what to do after the pandemic. Like how does touring music exist in this world? Like how do people respond? What's the reaction to like being locked in our houses for a year? And like we sat on this record for so long, just like trying to figure out the best way to get it out, how we wanted to tour with it. Like it's post-pandemic music, like the scene is so weird, especially because we're an international band where we have a vocalist that comes in from a different country. So like that was even harder, because international travel was banned for a long time.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't make things easier for you guys. So how has it been now that the pandemic is over and you guys are able to work with one another?
Yeah, it's really cool. Like it's a bit of a weird situation, obviously, because we don't see each other every day. We talk probably weekly, if not more than that. We're still we're very close to each other. We have spent now almost 10 years, together knowing each other. We wrote a new record actually last year that we're gonna start, getting recorded and getting together. And we just locked ourselves in a cabin in West Virginia. And it was kind of like being in college again, where we were all kind of sitting in a room. Obviously, now we have our other guitarist, Wes, who we met actually staying on his couch when we recorded the first record that we did with Jamie King. Um, and yeah, it just feels like a family. It's so cool. And like obviously, like we did UK Tech Fest in 2022. I think that was our first live show like post pandemic. And like it's so hard to like explain the feeling not only of like performing again, but like being with your brothers or like your best friends, like seeing, because we don't see each other all the time. So like the moment that we do get to hang and like be together, it's a really unique feeling, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. But you mentioned that the record was basically created before the pandemic, before the world shut down. The album comes out now, 4 years later, if you will. Did you guys had to tweak anything? Because it's a long period of time to sit on an album.
Um, I think we left it kind of exactly how it was. Um, the music industry in the world, sorry, I have some background noise there. The music industry in the world, like, kind of evolves. Um, but I think the thing that Wings Denied is after all this time is that we want to write music that we just like that we enjoy, that's fun to play, that makes people resonate in a specific type of way. So like there wasn't a lot that I think we felt like we had to go back and change. We changed a little bit of the mix, like we the mastering, we made a couple of changes, but like the songs are what the songs are. Like we were just happy to play them and to like make them. It like we concern ourselves not a lot with like the trends, I guess, in music, and more so just like how to make ourselves happy while we're on stage, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, and that kind of plays into I'm going to call it a wide sonic palette when you listen to the record. I don't think it's easy, or I don't think it's doable to put you guys under one single umbrella or to put you guys in a single box. Because when you listen to the album, there's a lot of different influences. There's a lot of different genres that creep in. Is that a result of the personalities in the band, or
Yeah.
was that a goal that you guys had in mind of creating a little bit more of a wide spectrum of sound?
One of my favorite conversations to have as like a touring musician is like how when we were touring when we were young and we were going around and doing full US tours, like I remember the questions we used to get asked a lot by bands that were more local that we would either stay on their couches or go party with after whatever, one of the first questions that we would always get asked is like, what do you think is the most important thing for a band to do? Um, Stage wise, performance wise. And for me, the very obvious answer eventually became just like be yourself. Like I think that people have a really good nose for, and I don't know if I can curse or not, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
people have a really good nose for bullshit. I think if you go up on stage and you do something really inauthentic, there's always going to be a disconnect between the performer and the artist, or sorry, the concert goer and the artist. I think if you go to watch any type of art, not just music, but any type of art that feels really disingenuous, you're going to be off put by it. And I think that is a big philosophy in our band, is that like we really do try to do things that we like to do. And we do have four very distinct personalities in the band, not only geographically, because we all live in different places, but like music palette wise. Like I'm a metalcore hardcore kid kind of growing up. Like I didn't get into prog music until college, basically. Um, Zach grew up, worshiping bands like BT Bam, Dream Theater. That's not really on my musical palette. Luca is like a jazz singer that just happened to love metal and became like a Darkest Hours fan, like, and then Wes, our other guitarist, slash sometimes also bassist. Um, he like is like a Viking metal dude. And like there's like maybe three or four bands that we all love, like the Deftones, like the Ocean, like some of the older like System of a Down, Breaking Benjamin's type of like bands that all kind of helped us get into metal at the time when we were younger. But like the wide array of sound is just I think is just a result of us just having a real desire to just be ourselves.
How do you then bring that diversity of sound into a record and offer, or do you even concern yourselves with that and offering somewhat of a cohesive experience for the album listener?
So I think for us, the thread that kind of ties it together, and this is kind of a larger statement on the band too, uh, is that we all like to have fun. And I know that sounds like a kind of a silly, like whimsical, thing to say, but um, none of us are the best musicians in the world, right? Like I'm not Matt Gartzka. Zach isn't John Petrucci. Like we're just not, and we knew that early. We were like, we had a lot of songs, especially earlier, where we were trying to push that prog envelope, especially like early in the gent scene when like bands like Periphery were doing some really cool stuff. And we were like, let's see how far we can push it and let's see how hard we can make our parts. And I think the realization that we're just not going to be the coolest kids in the school, you know, just like happened to like make it so we had less pressure to write that way. And it made it so like the thing that ties it all together, I think, for us is that we're really not trying to like work that hard. I know it sounds silly to say that. Like that's not really what I mean, but like I think you understand sort of the reading between the lines. Like we're not, the desire to write music that we enjoy is what ties all of our like different influences together. And I think like I do like every band does this, but we have fights all the time about like, oh, does this part work or does this part not work, or like do we like it in 11/8 or do we like it in just 4/4 or in in a syncopated triplet 6/8, like we just we have those fights, but ultimately it's just like we'll discuss it or we'll intellectualize it, and then we'll just play it, and we'll be like, does that feel good? And if the answer is no, then we're gonna rewrite.
I appreciate what you're saying, because I think what I'm getting from you is that instead of overcomplicating things, you try to simplify them.
Yeah, yeah, and like it's kind of funny and ironic being a prog band that's trying to simplify, you know?
That is
Um,
true. There is a little bit of an oxymoron with that.
yeah, it's kind of funny. But it's based in a desire to just write who we are and write what we love. Like, and we are prog people. Like we do like progressive music. I like the umbrella of progressive music in general because you can do weird stuff, you know? Like that song, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the record, but there's a song on it called Lost in It All. It's like a pretty slow ballady song.
Mhm.
We wrote that like a day or two before going into the studio. Like we were in our practice room kind of ironing out all of the different parts and all of the different like and that Wes who was playing bass at the time was like just started this like bass groove and I started to groove with it. And just because we're a prog band, we can write a song that's like a funk blues ballad and like nobody really bats an eye at it. It allows us the freedom to kind of express ourselves in many different ways, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm trying to give you a brain teaser, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I get what you're saying. I once asked Devin Townsend how he would define prog. And his answer to me, prog is an attitude, it's a state of mind. So it's not necessarily the way you sound, is the way you feel towards whatever it is that you're creating. So I think that kind of definition that he put together, I think it applies to you guys.
That guy is really smart. He's a,
I've told him that as well. I've told him a few times that I actually said to him that it took me a long time to get into his music. And I told him that. I said, I don't think I'm intelligent enough to grasp what you're doing. And he's like, dude, I'm as dumb as you. And I'm like, I don't know if that's a compliment, like, to me or to you. Like, I kind of don't know where we're going with this. I feel like at this point we're just insulting each other.
yeah.
But yeah, he's a mad genius.
But if you're talking about artists who are like authentically themselves, I don't think it gets
Yes.
any more authentic than Devin Tell, He's just doing what he wants to do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Regardless of where it falls.
Mhm.
Now, once I was listening to the album, and the one thing I noticed about the record, regardless of the differences in the sound from song to song, is that it feels to me like it's a very guitar centric sounding album. So, being a very guitar centric sounding album, where do you find room for your drums?
Um, yeah, Zach's an incredible player, man. I mean, like, obviously, I just spent a lot of time saying that we're like not the best musicians in the world, but like it's really fun to watch him work. And especially as a songwriter, um, it's kind of inspiring. Um, we mostly do the like modern prog thing of writing in Guitar Pro just because we're not local to each other. So like before this last record, which we like made a point of like not the one that just came out, but the one that where we just started working on, we made a point of trying to write it together, at least starting it together, because we wanted to just take a different approach. Um, but with this record that just came out, most of it was done by Zach. Most of the songs were done by Zach, except for I believe "Lost in It All" was kind of like a band, like collective one. And then we made a lot of changes to the songs as we kind of felt them. But Zach will tab out guitar, bass, drums, and then I'll work with Luca on vocals. Um, Guitarists don't always write the best drum parts. It's just like it's not their fault. They just don't know the physical requirement to playing drums. Like I can't do a closed hi-hat double bass section. It just doesn't like it. I mean, I could, I guess, in the studio, but never live unless I bought another hi-hat and left it permanently closed, right? So there's like funny little intricacies that you'll notice, especially if you're a drummer, when you know that a band is like doing Guitar Pro and Superior Drummer, because like they'll just do things that are impossible, So um I'll get the parts and I'll look at them and be like, okay, this is cool. I hate this. This is great, And then that's where my like moment to be like, okay, well, I don't like the way that this is done, or I don't like the emphasis he's putting on the snare drum here. I'm gonna change it. And a really good example of that is Black Legend, which is one of my favorite songs on the record. Um, we have this sort of like Coheed and Cambria style like middle section, and there was like a pretty busy double kick section that was happening during that uh in like the pre-production that we did. And then we're in the studio and we're sitting with Joel Hamilton, who's like one of the most incredible producers I've ever worked with. And we were just like feeling it. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, hey, what if we just didn't do that? And like just did like a really empty sort of like groovy but empty kick section. And he was like, let's try it. And it just came out and it felt so good to play it. I remember I was sitting behind the drums and I was like, yeah, this is it. Like, so like those little moments, I think is where I find my creativity. Again, it's not about like necessarily making the most creative or like domineering sound. I'm trying to serve the music the best I can and letting those guys be who they are, you know?
You touched on something really key in terms of working on the drums and the drum sound and creating something that you can actually perform, not just creating something for the record. As a drummer, and when you look at the state of the world, like you said, the music world has changed quite a bit since the pandemic. You have a lot of people that are playing drums on YouTube, on Twitch, and sometimes playing what is not even possible to be played. So, as a young drummer and a drummer in a band, when you look at some of these guys out there, how do you feel? Do you feel like they're doing a disservice to like younger guys that maybe want to pick up a drum as an instrument, and then they look at these dudes and the way that they're playing, fake playing it, and not knowing that they're fake playing and thinking, man, I'll never be able to do that and completely quit.
Um, I don't know, right? Like if you think of like the best bands of all time, or at least maybe I don't know about your favorite bands, but some of my favorite bands, like the drummers weren't like these machines, you know? Like Coheed and Cambria as a band I love dearly. That drummer is incredible, but he's just a dude, like he's just a dude that plays drum. Like he's not the fastest drummer in the world. He's not the most technical. He probably doesn't even know what time signature he's in most of the time. Like I've seen interviews with him where he's talked about it. Like he's just like having a good time. And I think it's a little bit of both. I think that when technology advances, when people can do more things, it pushes everybody to work harder so that like they get to a point where they're like, okay, like I can play that, you know? Like yeah, I think you're talking about the I forget his name, LS Stepriano.
Yeah.
Um yeah, like he's an insane person. Like it's inspiring to watch him play. He's incredibly consistent. He's so fast. But like and what he's doing is super valuable, to the community. I think that people will learn a lot by watching him do this, and then like having him talk about how hard it is, which is true. Like it is so hard. But if you think about successful bands, like it's not about an individual player. And I think as I've gotten older, specifically, because when I was younger, it was more about play as fast as you can, play the hardest possible stuff you can. As I've gotten older, I think I've gotten more comfortable in the idea that like I'm not it's not me. Like it doesn't have to be me. Like everybody has their place, everybody can fit, and we can write music that's like exciting, and I don't need to do the wildest, wackiest, crazy shit to do that. And I think that like that sort of like self-assuredness is like what makes playing an easy part feel better, you know? And like I've come around to the idea that like it's about serving the music more than it is about my own ego. And I think once you get there, I think that like writing music is easier too because you're not working like again. I feel like I've said that I'm just lazy, but like I'm
Yeah,
not.
you for a pro guy, yeah, you're pretty lazy. Just saying. Just saying.
That's not the intention of what I'm saying. It's more just that like if the music that you want to write is that, right, then write that and serve that music. And there are plenty of people who do that, you know. I don't I don't want that for my music, for my art, That doesn't mean it's bad. I love those bands, It's just not what I love. Like it's not what I love to do. And I care more about the song than I do about how difficult my individual part is. And I think that that's fun.
To quote The Rock, you know your role.
Yeah.
So, so I think that's what it comes down to. Maybe it's not laziness. Maybe it's just you're following The Rock's creed, which is
Yeah,
know
yeah,
your
yeah,
role.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you know
I
your
actually
role.
do. I do a rock bottom every time before I do it. I do. Well, no, it's this one, right? I do it to
Yeah,
my
yeah.
guitarist before we go on stage.
Now I noticed that this was an independent release from you guys. It was that by choice or necessity?
Um, it was, I think, more necessity than choice. We definitely shopped the record around. It was one of the reasons it like took forever to come out, pre-pandemic. Um, music industry drama being what it is. And unfortunate circumstances happening to everybody, we just decided it's time to get it out. We've been sitting on it for a long time. We love it. We want people to hear it. And we're tired of like trying to make something that's clearly not going to happen. So we were just like, let's just get this thing out. Let's let people hear it. Let's reestablish ourselves as people who write music and like people who hopefully write music people enjoy, and like let's see what the reaction is. We have more music, like we're not done, you know. We have a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline for like ourselves, which is we're very excited about. But like this record was a pretty big departure from the previous stuff we've done. And it was a little nerve-wracking too to like see how people would react to it,
No, and now it's been out for a while. So how's the reaction been?
Amazing. Yeah, people have at least at least to our faces have said nothing but really great things about it. Um, which is exciting. It's vulnerable. There is a vulnerability to like putting out art into the world and like letting people judge it because people love to do that, and and
Guilty.
yeah. Oh, hey, I actually I love watching channels like yours react to music because there's something really special about like knowing that there's a moment that's coming up in a song that I love and seeing somebody experience that for the first time, and seeing their reaction to it. Like I really enjoy that. I watch reaction channels all the time for that exact reason. Um,
Yeah, there's a lot of value in that, and we get a lot of that. I think it's I think reaction channels kind of started off as, and I don't want to get veered off here, but they kind of
mhm.
started off as a lazy way of creating content on YouTube, and suddenly they became a platform for bands to expose their music to an audience that otherwise would have never heard of their music
Yeah,
before.
I mean, think about what Ginger has done for the metal community.
Spirit Box, there's another one for you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And like it's only because they're doing stuff that like and again, not to get too far off track, but there are a lot of really unfortunate tropes about metal, specifically, women in metal. And uh I think that like allowing people to see how cool and how like dope these vocalists are that can do these crazy things that you would never expect, is like a really cool feeling. And people want to see that. People want to see people react to it. Like, and trying to avoid the like weird um the weird part of that is interesting, but like watching people experience music for the first time that like is interesting and has like beauty to it, but also is heavy is so cool. Like I love that. I don't know why, but I watch that all the time.
You're a better man than me because I cannot even watch my own videos. So there you go. Because I'm like, oh fuck, I can't believe I said that. But anyways, we go through that all the time.
I listen to my own music and I feel the same way. Like, why'd you play that?
Yeah, see, we have something in common in the way we look at what we create and put out there to the world. So the reception to the record has been good, better than what you expected, or in line of what you guys were expecting.
We did some stuff that I think do you remember like early in the metalcore days when like a metalcore band sang for the first time and like metal dudes would be like, "Oh God," you know? Um, I felt a lot of that when we were doing this record because we did very much take like a less proggy, a little bit more rock forward approach to what we were
Mhm.
doing. And it was on purpose. Like we wanted to kind of push that envelope a little bit, like aim for something that was like a little bit more straight and narrow and like still have the touches of prog, but like again, serve what we felt was the way we wanted to write music. And that was scary. Like I remember getting the first masters, I mean, a long time ago now, but I remember getting the first masters back and being like, this is different. And I don't know if people are gonna like it, like because again, a young metalcore kid, I remember that. I remember the judgment. So having had no people be like, you're a betrayal of Prague is like a pretty exciting thing to me, you know? Like I'm glad that nobody's felt that strongly about it. And not only that, but like having the reaction been super positive, but also I think people kind of see what we're doing, which is cool. Like all of the reviews we've gotten, all of like the individualized comments that we've gotten about the record have been like, yeah, you guys are taking difficult music and just putting a nice bow on it, like, and
Mhm.
that's really cool. Like that is exactly what we're trying to do. So for people not only to like receive it well, but also to understand why is cool without us having to tell them, you know, is nice.
Yeah, it feels like you got the message across.
Yeah, which is funny because we did a message in a bottle cover a long time ago, but this is a difficult bit to land. I was just trying to do
I
like
know,
a
but there's a nice segue there. There was a nice
yeah,
segue.
yeah,
That
I was doing like a little
it wasn't a nine on the landing, but
oh
it's not
no.
a Simone Biles nine kind of landing,
I'll
but
I'll work on it.
seven. I'll give you seven on that one. Last question for you is where are you guys planning to go next? I know you already have a lot of material recorded, so
Yeah.
what's your roadmap?
Yeah. That's an interesting question. And it's something that we're thinking about a lot right now. Um, we want to write music. We love writing music. Touring is difficult for us. We have international members. We have people that don't live in the same area codes. Obviously, we're all over the place. So it's hard for us to get together and tour, but it's something that we love doing, and it's something that we want to do very badly. Um, we have some plans in the works, some weekender stuff that we're hoping to get off the ground. But right now, it's just trying to get everything together, kind of see what the reaction for the record is, feel everything out, and see if we need to get back in the studio immediately or if we can go on a really long tour. And so we're kind of aiming to do a little bit of both, but there's no plan right now. It's more just kind of like, all right, let's see how the record feels, let's see how people are doing, and then we'll kind of reassess as we go.
I think that's wise. You're
Yeah.
wise beyond your years. So, and
I
on that note,
appreciate that.
and on that note, Alec, thank you very much for your time today. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you about Wings Denied and the new record, just the basics, which I kind of feel like it really encapsulates the vibe of the record, almost bringing it back to the basics. So, thank you very much for your time. It was an absolute pleasure. All the best, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.